Good afternoon and welcome to Just Jocelyn. I'm so glad that you could join us again. It's been a crazy winter, as you all know. We've got piles of 15 feet of snow, but guess what else we have in Nashua and the state of New Hampshire? We got other piles. Big piles. You need boots up to here, people. You need waders for what's going on in this state and specifically in Nashua. It's actually very disconcerting what we, the citizens, we, the voters, we, the people, the constitutional caretakers are having to go through. So I'm not going to go on too much about this, but this is very important. My guest, Laurie Ortolano, is back, and it's extremely important because she's a warrior, and I'm going to use that kind of wording. Laurie is a warrior because she stumbles upon things literally just to find out, well, why is this happening? Why is that happening? How come this? How come that? Only to get bludgeoned and, pushed off to the side and lied to and manipulated for answers that all of us have the right to know every day, every minute, every second. And we're not getting them. She's not getting them. This is a problem. It's local, it's state, and it's federal, and it needs to stop. So I will continue to have people on my show that tell the truth, that are honest, and are warriors for you and me. And that does include me because she's an inspiration to me, and many people, and the people that come on my show, are teaching me how to go beyond what I do. So I want to thank you so much for everything that you do, because so many people can't or won't. Or in my case, I just don't know enough, so I'm learning by the seat of my pants.
Right.
But it all counts. So today, I'd love to hear an update on the Arts Center and what exactly is going on. So without further ado, take it away, Miss Laurie.
Okay, so I think in the last shows we've done, we talked a little bit about the whole Arts Center financing scheme and our concerns, myself and Miss Calhoun, with what was going on there. And we put together a fraud complaint in 2023, in the fall of 2023, and we launched that out to all of these state agencies that we thought could help.
In the state of New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire, we focused.
That's quite a few agencies, right?
It is.
Okay.
We went to the Jane Young's office, the state attorney.
Yep.
We went to the AG DOJ's office. We went to the county attorney's office. We went to the fed complaints into the professional conduct committee on the conduct of the lawyers that were involved in this. Fed a complaint into the Maine conduct committee too, with one of the attorneys that was practicing through Maine, but doing the work on this, didn't have a New Hampshire license, but used some people and did the work on this art center. So, and we worked with our local judge with our case. And after months, we received no response at all. In a follow-up, I followed up at the AG's office, literally drove up there twice, had somebody come out and talk to me saying they're reviewing it. Then it went cold, followed up like 6 months later, and they said, we dismissed it. We gave it to, you got to take it to the county attorney. And they didn't notify us. And when they wrote it, they said, we let you know that you have to go to the county attorney.
Oh, where would that be?
In Nashua, Hillsborough County Attorney.
No. Where was that notification?
Guess what? When I asked him that, I said, you notified us that we needed to go to...
Where is that? Let me see
Where is it? He said,
me a copy.
It's right now. I just told you. That was the email. So, it was like a joke. I was so furious. I'm like, just now? I'm following up and now you're telling me?
So, silly little me, how is that actually legit? How does this stuff happen? Our taxes are paying, and I'm going to go back to the money. Our taxes are paying their stinking salaries,
yes.
And they're not doing their job, and they work for us. And all I see is just stab, 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 steal, 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 lie, lie, lie.
Right.
I mean, there's no other way to say it. I can't sugarcoat it any other way.
No, and I'll tell you, Laura and I were discussed it. We wasted 6 months. So we head over, we give it to the attorney, the county attorney. Meanwhile, Jane Young's office is dead quiet. We try to follow up. There's nothing there. So, we hit the FBI office in Bedford.
Bedford?
Yeah.
Been there many times.
Yeah, had some success.
Mm-hmm.
And, but the county attorney, we get an email back after we hand deliver it over there, because it's in our town, in our city, with a note that says, we really can't look at this. And, by the way, we don't have a forensic accountant. Now, they just tell you, we don't have a forensic accountant. Okay. So what does that mean? Does that mean you're not going to investigate? Does that mean you're going to send it back to the AG? Who has one? Like, you have this complaint. Who's responsible for researching the misuse and, unjust enrichment that a city took with $34 million of taxpayer money? Who covers that? No response back. So we pushed for a meeting in the fall. At this point, we're in 2024. And we had a meeting with the woman who had the case initially and the county attorney, the elected county attorney, who is Coughlin.
Yep.
And he brought an investigator in as well. So, and the meeting started off very dismissive, very like, okay, we're giving you this meeting, but hurry up. One of the officials was just doodling, no eye contact, no interest. I could tell that they just had
their minds are already made up, and this is just,
And I moved them off the doodling after about 30 minutes and got them involved. But the way it started off was, your complaint doesn't name the exact criminal charges you want us to investigate. And I said, isn't that your job? Yeah. Aren't you the office that determines what that is?
We're talking about $34 million.
Right.
If you strip it down, $34 million of taxpayer money, you need to investigate where it went.
And the fact that a $7 million loan was never put on the books, the fact that 2 companies formed to do this were never identified to the IRS, despite the city and the attorney hired to represent this told us, we're setting all this up because the IRS has to know what's going on with the money. They never filed a return on those corporations. So, and then the city claimed that those corporations that were set up with all of our money, we didn't own them. The city had no responsibility for them. That became the big issue of the lawsuit. So, to sit there and have them say that, you didn't name them. I wrote a long letter after I walked out of there that was very pointed about their job and our job as citizens. We have distinct jobs.
Correct.
We bring complaints forward to you that we think have merit, and the misuse of public funds or the unjust enrichment that elected officials are taking with our money is something you can investigate.
Correct.
And I expect you to figure out the charges to lay down.
Yeah.
They took it nowhere.
Well, we're supposed to be able to go to our government.
Right.
And the agencies for remedy.
Right.
And bar none, there's a bunch of us that have been out there for 6-8 years trying to get remedy from the legislative branch or anybody, only to have the door slammed in our face and insults.
Exactly.
You're exactly right. That's their job. And we have no remedy.
Right. And really, the whole fraud component of this scheme was identified to the court, to the judge. There was a summer hearing where I just spilled out all of this unaccounted for money and the way these corporations were set up. It left the defendants very speechless. It made the judge look pretty surprised. And I sat back and wondered, what does a judge do with information like this? Somebody has now identified, and I really at the time didn't know the significance of it. I was trying to defend my case to say there's a lot of hidden data in here and records aren't open because of all this fraud.
Right.
And it's a very interesting conundrum in New Hampshire with the right to know law, because the right to know law is there, and FOIA has case law where they say the whole purpose of filing Freedom of Information Acts and requests for governmental information is to ferret out corruption.
Correct.
Okay? Well, that's what it is in New Hampshire. I'm filing this initially just to find records, and then as it opens up it opens up more, there appears to be some corruption. So now I'm ferreting out corruption. As soon as you introduce that to the court, it's like they run for the hills.
Well, it seems to me that everything is so darn political.
Yes.
Instead of being judicial and legal. And again, they say separation of power, separations of, the branches of government. We're not seeing that. We're seeing CYA on steroids. I think, as Elon Musk said, it looks like they all got jabbed, with cocaine and what was it? Something else he said, and they're all like, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!"
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's maddening because so the judge had an idea of what was going on, and when I did that hearing in July, he went very quiet. There were no rulings coming out for 4 months. It was just quiet.
$100, somebody said to him, "Shut up."
Well,
we know from our cases,
yes.
They were told.
Well, and what I found from some other friends who said they went in and introduced fraud elements into issues going on in Nashua. And they said every time they say the word fraud, the judge ends up coming back saying, "I'm not going to hear that. We're not going to address the fraud piece."
Or no standing.
Right.
Those are the two.
We don't look at that.
Yep.
So they very quickly slide it off the table or pretend they didn't hear it. Well, and then you're left to go to these other agencies that are all totally non-responsive. My frustration with the AG's office, DOJ, is we had that case break last year in October, November, where Justice Haynes Marconi was arrested on an indictment. And it was the AG's office, the gentleman who brought that indictment forward and convened a grand jury that issued the indictment and had her arrested, was the same guy who had our complaint. Now, and when you look at her case and what's on the table and what's going on with that case, it is very murky. It is very odd. It's not understandable, really. The depositions that were taken with the Chief Justice and Sununu
who admitted
that
they did.
Right, and it seemed as though Sununu admitted that she came, but I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Well, that's what I mean. Admit that there really is no case, and he admitted that.
Right. So you've got this
murky, like
very
you said,
conflicting testimony. I mean, we don't have all the evidence, so we don't know everything. But when it comes to standing back and looking at it and reading the court dockets, it's really unclear what's going on there. She turns 69 this month. She ages out in 12 months. I don't think they really want her back on that court. You only got to keep her off for 12 months and she's done.
Yeah.
So this motion to dismiss is before a judge. They'll decide on that, in 2 or 3 months. If they dismissed it, she'd come back on. If they don't, and you prepare for a trial, she's done. Her Supreme Court term is over.
Correct.
She won't get back on that bench. Going to a trial, it's going to take another year and a half. So this thing will drag out and her time will be up. So what's going on that's making that happen? I don't know. But I'm really frustrated that you can bring a case. This gentleman could bring a case against a Chief Justice the way it's brought and say it's, this is really important. That's fine. But a case involving $34 million of public money with loans that are undocumented, a financial commitment to the taxpayers that's going to last 25 years, a center that we're always going to be responsible for funding.
Correct.
And,
crickets.
Companies that were never registered with the IRS and an accounting of the money that's in them that is simply not there. And we have to accept that because they said that's really not an important issue. Just a couple weeks ago, a gentleman called me who had read Laura in my paper that we had put out over a year ago. And he was in the banking business for his whole life. And he said, "What is happening with your investigation?" He goes, "I've read that paper." He said, "I've worked in the industry my whole life. I know these tax credit programs. This was completely misapplied.
Yep.
It's wrong." He goes, "How is it somebody isn't all over this?" And I said, there was no state interest. So it blew his mind because it was so obvious. But I think, if we don't have forensic accountants and we don't have talented, competent people who can address white collar crime, then we need to be very particular about saying to municipalities, no public-private partnerships. You do not take this kind of money that create complex deals because you yourself in your municipality don't have the sophistication, and we have no monitoring program to oversee you when tens of millions or $100 million of money is flowing. There's no way we can check you out. So don't allow it to go on.
Yep, but they know it.
They know it. The city knows it, and your mayor is a lawyer. Your legal office is very compromised and dishonorable, and they're happy to do these deals, interpret them the way they want. And citizens trying to fight this, the courts have made it nearly impossible for us to go in pro se and cost-wise. Right.
And it's no longer right and wrong
and
black and white, which a couple of judges, I've said to them, right is right, wrong is wrong, black and white, it's very obvious. But they're spinning in this, my interpretation, her interpretation, his interpretation, our interpretation. Everything is political in interpretation, which is not what the Constitution is based on, which is not what the law is supposed to be, common law. It's supposed to be right and wrong. It's supposed to be based on the Constitution, and it's not. It's based on people's feelings and their interpretation. How is anybody supposed to be able to move forward with that, let alone pro se litigants?
Oh, it's nearly impossible. And, the other word that I think is so important is reasonableness. You have to be reasonable about what you're assessing here.
Yeah.
What is known, what you're assessing, what they use legislative interpretation all the time on what the legislature meant by way of looking at minutes and recorded documents when legislation was done. And they work hard to try and stick in the lines on what the legislature was trying to accomplish. Well, we need to apply that level of reasonableness when we're in a courtroom, pro se litigants and even defended litigants, when we're looking at, records. All of my work is about public records. This should not be a criminal case. They treat you like they want to make me a criminal for doing this.
Correct.
They have worked so hard to criminalize my work.
Yep.
And me personally.
And you personally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's been 5 years and it has not backed down at all. And I'm so frustrated by the judge, who I think played the biggest role in allowing this to get out of hand. He had the power and the tools in his toolbox to stop the personal attacks. And I'm writing. So right now, this update, we updated the whole report in September 2024.
So this book,
is
which
our
is
document.
What, 3.5, 4 inches thick?
This is all the supporting evidence and exhibits and financial sheets and pages.
On the Art Center.
And the contracts that were signed that we feel lead to a trail of misuse of public funds.
Okay.
And so we resubmitted the complaint, we retooled it, we got a hook into a federal agency, and they took a lot of interest in it, and it's outside of the state. So we feel like, we have some movement going now.
Okay.
Which
is really sad that we're not getting
do it here.
Any remedy in this state at all.
Couldn't do it. I wasted my time.
Yep.
And, maybe you just got to be lucky. Maybe it's God's gift, that you just find the right person. But when the person read it, they said to Laura and I, it was one of the best written complaints they had read. Phenomenal amount of information that walks you right through what's going on. I mean, they were excited about the case. They thought it was very interesting. So hopefully now, once these things take hold, you really don't get any information. It gets very quiet, which is fine. I understand that. So I hope and pray quietly this whole thing keeps going.
That no news is good news.
That
right
no
now.
news is good news, and that's how it goes. But my frustration with the state for not taking action and for giving us the types of responses they did, very unprofessional. And it's all agencies that have lawyers in them, that are driven by attorneys. And there's just an underpinning, I think, of dishonor and corruption in those institutions in this state that is really troubling to me.
Yep.
Very political.
Well, all roads lead back to the Bar Association. And
I have a big problem with them. Big problem. So secondary to that complaint, I'm submitting my appeal to the Supreme Court in like 8 days. I got to get it in on this Art Center case, on these. One appeal went up on the private company This is the second part in the appeal on the 2 public companies that were formed by the city and the ruling from the court. That big downtown barrier TIF Art Center case I filed in the court, the order came out and I won almost all of it on the downtown barriers, a little bit of it on the TIF, a couple things on the Art Center, but the major rulings of the Art Center he skipped. The judge just didn't rule on whether these corporations were public entities. He claimed that the corporations decided after I filed the lawsuit to operate as public entities, and therefore I had no reason to file the lawsuit. Well, they didn't change it until after I filed the suit.
I was just going to say that's not the way it was when you filed initially.
No,
and it's almost like they were given a little tidbit of, hey, tweak this, tweak that, and we'll make her go away.
And there was no genuine interest on the part of these corporations in the city to fix the problems I identified. Before I filed in August of 2022, it was in November of 2021, I started asking about these meetings and these companies and were they public, and nobody would answer me. Basic question like going and writing an email. Can you tell me are these 201 Main Street or are the MPAC entities public meetings open to the public? Do they have public records?
Those are basic questions.
They wouldn't answer. Okay, and why? They'll turn around and say, well, we don't have to answer questions. You didn't ask for a record. There's a line to that and a limit, I think. I think our constitutional rights offer us protection, particularly about meetings. Part 1, Article 8 says government will be open, accessible, accountable, and responsive.
At all times to the people.
At all times to the people. It will conduct itself in an orderly, lawful, and accountable manner.
Yep.
Okay, it's not doing that when basic questions aren't answered. And more importantly, I discovered that when it came to notices for these corporations and minutes, there was no policy in City Hall to handle records out of the Economic Development Office. They had a policy on noticing. The policy had been last updated in 2015. When Mayor Donches came into the city, he shifted a lot of projects into economic development because it was the office right next door to him. He could lock the door and he could conduct them all privately.
Correct.
And he was sifting $50-60 million of money in there. So there were no open records in City Hall down in the clerk's office. And when
he took it away from the public eyes, and he took it away from what should have been open to everybody.
Absolutely. Those were meetings that, Tim Cummings could kind of come out of his office and sit in Mayor Donches' office, give him an update, talk about finances, talk strategy, make decisions. All of that was done in a connected office with closed door. And if you wanted any kind of record, there was no way to get it. And they didn't put any kind of records down in the clerk's office. And when I got the last policy done by the clerk's office, it didn't even address or identify that records would be in economic development or economic development would be posting.
It seems, God, it's just mind-blowing because it's everywhere on every level, from the tiniest little complaint to the biggest complaint. We're all being treated like, shut up and sit down. You don't know what you're talking about. We know what's best for you.
Yeah.
And they secret everything and ferret everything away behind closed doors. And if you dare knock on that door, you get arrested or you get threatened. Or if you make an appointment and, we don't have that. Well, we don't have this. Well, you can't have that. Again, it's we, the people, are the ones that pay your salaries, and we are the ones you answer to. And it is completely flipped. 100%.
Yeah.
And the courts are right there along with them.
They are. I mean, you can't, I'm really a big believer, you cannot send Democratic judges into a city that's hard left Democrat with a mayor and a board. Our city's pretty hard left. Yep. Our mayor's views are very hard left. He's not a moderate Democrat, and he's not an economic Democrat. He's not a Democrat that's worried about the economy in general. He doesn't.
It sounds like he wants to be part of Massachusetts.
Well, we are. In so many ways, we are part of Massachusetts. And the way the state treated this complaint, just dismissing it, made me feel like we weren't even part of the state.
Correct.
So I'm appealing all of that now and writing this up. And I got to tell you, the order, came out last July, and we did the motion for reconsideration. So here we are, fast forward, I'm in February. It's been 8 months, and I have to open all this stuff up and look at it again. And it's such a painful and traumatizing journey
is.
to look at this.
Yep.
It's been a terrible 2 weeks for me to revisit, to look at the orders. The case summary for this case was 23 pages long. So out of control. It took over 2 years. They brought in those 5 lawyers. It was the art of the ambush and the breaking of rules every step of the way. And one of the most painful things about this is I wrote a motion in January of 2023 to ask the judge to recuse Attorney Bolton and Leonard because their conduct was too personal.
Right.
And I laid out a 50-page motion and then attached all of the
evidence,
transcripts and records. His police reports of 100 pages, the arrest record on myself for the arrest in February of 2021, I attached that in the record. His attempted arrest of me in the hallway in July of 2022, I attached that to the record. All of the ambushes they were doing in court and all of the statements that were being made personally in hearings, I just attached it all. I didn't know at the time that I didn't have to attach full transcripts, and I did. So it made it like a 1,000-page document. I could have had it probably be 400 if I took all the stuff out. But I referenced the pages I wanted him to look at. So it was a voluminous exhibit package. But it was detailed. Everything from when my abatement started. And they refused to negotiate with me. Wow. He didn't issue a ruling. We're going to go off in a second. Yeah, I didn't get a ruling until July 17th.
So again, dragged their feet,
and denied it. And said they get to stay. There's no issue here. So
this is a consistent story across the state.
it is.
In every courtroom, in every city and every town, with pro se litigants and people that are trying to do the right thing and hold the state and the cities accountable with our tax money. Wow. Again, riveting and unbelievable behavior in our state. Let's take a break here, come back for the second half of the show, and we're going to move on to something that you touched on that we're going to discuss a little bit in the second half. So thank you, Laurie Ortolano.
Thanks for having
me. And we'll
me.
be right back. Thank you so much for joining me, Jocelyn, on Just Jocelyn.